Hey, what's going on? This is Felix, also known as Enoch, student at Absolute Bible Truth, and I'd like to give a big shout out to Sal Showtime and Debate Talk for You. I'm a frequent listener, been listening since season 1. Keep doing your thing, and for everybody out there who can hear this, send in your donations so Debate Talk for You could go on for a long time. Alright, y'all. Peace.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio.
HebrewWay.com, high-quality custom Israelite apparel store. The place to find scripture-based attire for men, women, and children of all ages. We have a wide range of t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, caps, beanies, and bags, available in a full range of sizes. Also, the ideal place to find Israelite gifts for family and friends. HebrewWay.com is geared toward awakening men and women and especially the youth worldwide. Try our uniquely crafted collection with free shipping on eligible items. Help spread the word of the Most High. Visit us at HebrewWay.com. That's HebrewWay.com.
Gather yourself together with Fringes. Fringes is a new social networking app for the community. Are you looking to study, teach, cook, play, sew, and travel? Perhaps you're new to the area and are tired of spending Sabbaths alone? Are you looking for a place to post your events, products, and services? Rejoice! Fringes is here. Download free today. Available on Google Play and the App Store.
That dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio.
Yo, what's the word, everybody? You're now tapped in live to another segment of the Man Up. This evening, we got a powerful concept to discuss and to get into. We're going to lay it out, and we're going to read it, and we're going to come across it, and we're going to show you that it's lined up in the scriptures. A lot of people may not be too familiar with this topic, but I'm going to fall back, and I'm going to allow my co-hosts to really get into it a little deeper. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, shalom, Ms. Pakar. Peace, family. Synonymous Hebrew. We're going to go ahead and get started. Is anything else you wanted to say before we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I would like to say, we're pretty much this evening we're going to discuss the divine counsel. Now, I know in the community a lot of individuals, they disagree with this. They like to kick and twist and fight. This evening we are asking, we have no issue with people disagreeing. We understand that we're not going to always agree. But what we do ask is that you listen thoroughly. Listen and make sure that when you are ready to object, that you object the scriptures that we're going to deal with. I'm asking that. Let's sit back and listen, then object. And another thing, a lot of people like to sit back and say we're promoting the worship of other gods. No, we're not. We're not putting nobody up above the Most High. So I would like for people to sit back, listen, and if you have any objections, press the 1, and we'll deal with it. Go ahead, Ike.
All right. Shalom, family. And, I want to get started off first by saying all praise to the Most High, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who we know as the Creator. Some of us call him Yahweh. Some of us call him Yahuwah. Some of them say Yahuwah. Some just say the Tetragrammaton. Whatever it is, I believe that we all serving the same God, that same power that has allowed all of us to become who we are, allowed us to wake up in our captivity, and now allowing us to be able to get to the point where we're able to really start expounding upon this word that we are starting to devour. I want to reiterate what the brother said, and I guess, I should clarify what we're going to talk about. I think most people know the title, but just in case you don't, we're talking about henotheism, exploring the divine counsel. So I want to make it clear, I'm not a teacher. I don't claim to be someone that knows everything. I'm not saying I'm the Hebrew expert or anything like that. But this is something that I've for a while, and we have seen this spoken about in the community a lot lately, especially within the last year, it seems. And I think that prayerfully, Most High willing, that we can bring some clarity to this situation tonight in order to hopefully remove some of the stereotypes and stigmas behind this concept. Also, in order to bring some clarity as to why this is relevant. And I want to make that clear. A lot of times we have debates and arguments and lessons, and it leaves us sometimes wondering why this is relevant. So I want to begin first by explaining why I believe the text shows that this is relevant. And that's basically plainly when we deal with what our real mission is, which is to bring about the blessing of Abraham, which is for us to be these people that come to ourselves and bless these nations with the truth and build this mountain, which we'll get into a little bit as well, build this mountain of justice and judgment. We have to know who our enemy is. And that's what this concept is going to be about. Us learning and defining and figuring out who the enemy is. Because if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves, which we are, fighting people and not realizing that there is a spirit or an entity behind these different thoughts and premises that we are doing that is allowing us or causing us to go and live contrary to the will of the Most High. So as we get through this, like the brother said, the first thing I want to make clear is we are not promoting the worship, acknowledgement, or love and respect of any deity. We are simply showing you what's in the text, going through it, and we want you to call in and ask your questions, but please be respectful. Please deal with the information that I'm putting forth also, because I don't want you to call in and get to arguing about the Messiah or any of this stuff, because that's not what this is about. And prayerfully, I'll be able to get through this without even making it really about that. There are going to be some verses that we may have to deal with, but this is really not about that concept. This is more about realizing who the enemy is, so hopefully we can get out of this civil war and self-destruction that we are in this nation. So, if all minds are clear, you got anything out? Sal, anybody got anything before I go ahead and get started?
No, you go right ahead.
All right. Hallelujah. So this is just basically going to be a brief introduction into the henotheistic and monolateristic beliefs that we see in the Bible. Before we get started, I'm going to define a few terms, all right? So the terms are going to be something, we're going to deal with polytheism, monotheism, henotheism, monolatry. We're going to define ontology just because it seems to be something that is have some discrepancies in the community. And then also we're going to explore a little bit of Elohim and just the tetragrammaton of the Creator, briefly dealing with what we would say Yahweh or Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. And then after I do these terms, then we'll jump into really addressing the divine counsel and how it's laid out. So first, let's deal with polytheism. According to the Oxford Dictionary, polytheism is the belief in or worship of more than one God. Now, the Zondervan Dictionary of Bible and Theological Words, Dictionary of Bible and Theology Words says it is the belief in multiple deities. The way I would sum that up is saying believing in the existence of many gods and worshiping more than one God. But that doesn't mean that they believe in worshiping all those gods, but, they may believe in several gods and worship 5 or 10, however they look at it. Things like Hinduism kind of is the best example of this. So that's your best understanding of polytheism. Now let's address monotheism. The Oxford Dictionary says that monotheism is the doctrine or belief that there is only one God. Zondervan Dictionary of Bible and Theology Words says it is the belief in the existence of only one God, as opposed to polytheism, which is the belief in many gods. The way I would sum this up, simply put, is the belief, existence, and worship of only one God. So as opposed to polytheism, monotheism is just the belief in the existence of and the worship of only one God, which is what many of our brothers and sisters believe in. Not a knock on anybody either way, just saying that's really what most people think of when they think of this biblical tradition. We think that there's one God and the rest is idols or non-existent beings, and we'll get into that. Thirdly,
in other words, I just want to ask you real quick. In other words, what's commonly thought of, right? The common thought.
Right.
Okay.
Right. The common thought, and that's on either side. We're not going to say Torah only or New Testament. We're just going to say either side, however people believe. The common thought is a monotheistic belief. So now we get to this third one, and this seems to be the buzzword. I've heard this spoken of and talked about, and actually people go so far as to say that henotheism is you cannot find anything like that in the Tanakh. You cannot. It is a Greek concept. Well, I will say tonight we're going to put that to the test. So let's address henotheism. The Oxford Dictionary describes henotheism as the adherence to one particular God out of several, especially by a family, tribe, or other group. I'll repeat that. The adherence to one particular God out of several, especially by a family, tribe, or other group. The Zondervan Dictionary of Bible and Theology Words says it is the commitment to one God above others in a polytheistic system. The way that I would sum this up, and it's going to be important that you hear the last part of the way that I sum this up, it is the believing in the existence of many gods, worshiping only one of them, but allowing others to worship other gods. This, when you really study henotheism at the academic level, is really what it boils down to. That last part is very essential. The belief in the existence of many gods, worshiping only one of them, but allowing others to worship other gods. Now, this next term is something that I haven't heard spoken about a lot, except for Brother Divine Prospect. And I want to give him credit for him bringing this to the community. I'm sure there are many of us that have studied this for a long time, but I will say that this is the brother who has seemed to make this more popular, and that's all I'll say about our brother tonight. So monolatry or monolatrism or monolatristic, but we're going to specifically deal with the word monolatry. This is the worship of one God without the denial of the existence of other gods. This is how Oxford defines it. Zondervan defines it as the worship of one deity, even though other deities may be acknowledged. And finally, the way that I would sum this up is the believing in the existence of many gods, worshiping only one of them, and not allowing others to worship any other god. So the best way I can sum this up, and this will probably show you where we're going tonight, is that when you think about Israel, especially in the ancient, I don't want to use the word pre-exilic, but in the ancient times, the one thing that they were known for was they would worship the Creator. Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh was their deity. But they knew that all of the enemies around them had other deities. They had other gods. But just because they had other gods, Israel didn't mount up every day and go to war with everybody that had other gods. Now, when we came in and took the land, we took the land, but we just didn't go out killing everybody every time they had another god. That wasn't the prescription. So that is the henotheistic belief, right? We have one God, but everybody else has other gods, and we let them continue to do what they do. That's henotheism. Like it or not, that's just how it works. Now, here's monolatry or monolatrism. When we have our belief in one God, we know that other people believe in other gods, but if you are a part of Israel and you try to worship another god, you are stoned or killed or whatever the prescription is in the Tanakh. That's monolatrism. You can search it out. You can study it up. That is specifically how monolatry works. So you can imagine that that is what we see in the text. And as we get ready to start to dig into this we can clearly see that that's how it works. Deuteronomy 17 tells you specifically, if somebody around you is worshiping another god, you got to take care of that. So please don't shoot the messenger. I'm just showing you these definitions. And I want to point this out too as well. Yes, we know that monolatry and henotheism and polytheism and any other ism that you can think of, these are modern terms, 1700s for most of these terms. So most people take that and say, well, if it came about in the 1700s and if we can't find it in the Tanakh, then we shouldn't be saying it. But that thinking is flawed, right? And we'll get into why that is, especially when you try to say, a lot of us use the word God or we use the word angels. Elohim does not necessarily mean specifically just God, and that's something that we're going to address. We have to be very careful to be consistent. If you're going to say we can use the word God, then we should be able to use the word Elohim, because none of these terms accurately and completely describe what is going on in the text. These are just terms that we have, and we're using them to the best of our capability. So once again, to just negate henotheism because it is what we would consider a Greek or European concept, we shouldn't even be reading this book then. I mean, most of us read the book in English. So that argument is flawed in its logic. The last thing that we'll address will be ontology. All right, ontology is the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being. That's described in the Oxford Dictionary. Zondervan says it's related to being. I simply say it's the state of being or the state of existence. This concept also about ontology necessarily having to have some anthropomorphic existence or manifestation, meaning it needs to have lips, eyes, nose, ears. It needs to speak and do all of these things for it to actually have an ontology. Once again, it's flawed. You've never seen the Creator, but you know He exists. Our ancestors had these types of beliefs about ontology, and we're going to get into that in the text, most high willing. So there is often this discussion that these other quote-unquote gods, which I would hope that we get away from using this, but these other Elohim don't exist. They have no ontology. This is what some people seem to say. I'll simply put it like this. There are several proof texts in the Tanakh that says that compares the Creator to other deities or other gods. If you're going to go as far as to say that these gods do not exist, then we are constantly saying that our Creator is greater than nothing. The Most High, He's the God of gods. He's the Elohim of Elohim. But that second Elohim doesn't exist. These things are very illogical, and it makes us look very foolish when we present these things to other communities, because it's right there plain as day in the text. So we have to be very careful about how we state these things. So quickly, let's just discuss what Elohim is. Zondervan describes God. We'll deal with God first. God, according to Zondervan, is a generic Hebrew designation for deity, commonly referring to Yahweh, or plural of El. Now, addressing El is a generic Hebrew designation for deity, which frequently appears in the compound names for Yahweh. This is what the definition says, so y'all don't cut my head off. Such as El Elyon, God Most High; El Shaddai, God Almighty; El Roy, the God who sees. El is also the designation of a prominent Canaanite deity. Now, I want to make this clear. Tonight, I will not be going into the Canaanite traditions and the Ugaritic and the Mesopotamian concepts in the text, simply because I want to deal with our text. If I do have to get into a debate about this or a later build, I will gladly go into those texts. But I don't believe that we need the Canaanite text in order to deal with and address what we see in the Tanakh. So moving forward, the definition of Elohim is a name for God used frequently in the Hebrew Bible. That's according to Oxford. Elohim is a generic Hebrew designation for deity, commonly referred to Yahweh, plural of El. That's with the Zondervan. And then I'm going to give you the Brown, Drivers, and Briggs as well. And it has several, but I'm just going to deal with the first one. Rulers, judges, either as divine representatives at sacred places or as reflecting divine majesty and power. So we can see that this seems to be kind of concrete, right? Everything points to God, God, God. But my question, and I want to ask you guys first, when you think about this, is ask yourself a quick question. Who is or who are the Elohim? And what I mean even more specific is, who gets called God or Elohim in the Tanakh or even in the New Testament? So I'm going to go through a couple of quick things so you can understand what I mean. So when we ask who are or what are the Elohim, let's deal with first the God of Israel, who we know to be Yahuwah or Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. We see this clearly represented in the Shema, right? Shema Yisrael, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, Elohim, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh Echad. So, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, right? That's what we see. So clearly, the Creator is called Elohim. But a lot of other people don't realize that in various texts, there are heavenly beings called Elohim, what we would call the heavenly host or the divine council. We see it in Psalm 82. We also see it in Psalms 89. We'll get into that as we go through the lesson. Also, the gods of the nations are actually called Elohim. Specifically, I want to say in 1 Kings 11, you see Ashtaroth, Chemosh, Milcom. All these are actually called Elohim. Excuse me. The demons or the devils, or what we would say in Hebrew, the Shadim, are also called Elohim. That's specifically in Deuteronomy 32:17. We would say the figures in the spirit world. Now, I'm not here to argue tonight about 1 Samuel 28:13, whether or not it was really Samuel, whether or not the familiar spirit was there or wasn't. That is not the point. The point is that the witch saw something that she referred to as Elohim. So this is something that she sees. Now, whether you want to say it's a disembodied dead, whether you want to say it's a human spirit, whether you want to say it's a demon or whatever it is, she saw something. The same thing with Yaakov. He sees the angels of Elohim going up and down Jacob's ladder. So these entities are also called Elohim. The angel or Malak Yahuwah or Malak Yahweh in Genesis 35, 32, and chapter 48 is also called Elohim. The Most High actually says he's going to make Moshe an Elohim to Pharaoh. And there are even some interpretations that says that the judges are Elohim. I want to make this clear in case I have to deal with this later as well. I probably would take that to task if I was forced to, but it really doesn't matter, because the point of the matter that I'm trying to make is that Elohim is not something that is just simply centered upon what we know to be the Creator, right? So that means that it does not come with a specific set of attributes, i.e., this is God. Elohim only means God, right? It actually means, from what I can see, something of some type of ontological existence in most cases. So moving forward, we need to really move beyond this point of thinking whenever we see Elohim that it strictly just means the Creator. Really briefly, I'm just going to talk about what we would call Yahweh or Yahuwah or Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. And I'll just simply put it like this, because this topic gets so contentious. When it comes to the Creator is Elohim, but no other Elohim is the Creator. I want to make that very clear. When it comes to the Creator, when it comes to the name, that is an Elohim, but no other Elohim is him. Right? Now that we have these definitions clear, we out the way with that. Anything you want to bring out, Ak? Anything you want to add to what I said?
Just some clarity, when you say the name, you mean Hashem, right?
Yeah, Hashem. Yeah, Khan.
Okay, so Hashem, that is referring to who most of us will call the Father, some will call the Most High or the Creator, right?
Right.
Okay, and one more thing before we start to digging. Again, we are not promoting worship, especially what we're doing is we're going through our documents, which we understand to be the scriptures. So we're not promoting worship above the Creator or the Most High or Hashem. I just wanted to get that clear. And the thing is that I think a lot of people, they are getting confused and confounded over certain words when we say them. So throughout this season, we're going to constantly remind people we are not putting nobody above the Most High or Hashem. I just want to clarify that, because some people, what they do, they listen to react and they listen just to want to fight. There's various people in this community that will do it. We're asking to sit back and just listen. I think that's the problem in Israel. Israel don't want to listen. Everybody want to talk and run their mouth. So we're asking, really, please, sit back, take notes, and just listen. All right, Doc, the floor is yours.
Man, I appreciate that. And I want to take the time to do this as well. Once again, I never claimed to be a teacher. I study a lot. I study the language. And that's why tonight was going to be a build. But also, since we had it set up, I wanted to make sure that we went into this topic. And so I first want to thank Sal and BA for even giving me this opportunity, because this is something that is very near and dear to me. And as you'll see, as we go later and deeper into the teachings, there is a real spiritual fight. And some of us that seem to just negate or reject that there is even any type of spiritual existence beyond ourselves, this is why we're losing. All right, Israel, this is why we're losing the fight, because we do not know who our enemy is. All right, so now we're going to start to get into some of this scripture. We're going to dig into it a little bit. There are going to be some times where I ask Brother B.A. to read some scriptures in the Greek or in the Septuagint and bring out some definitions from that, simply because as we move later, it's going to be very essential, especially when we move into some of the New Testament writings, with understanding how we see the book and how we believe that our ancestors saw this book. So the first thing I want to bring out is going to be Genesis chapter 9, verse 19. And it may not seem very essential right now, but it will be once I couple it with Genesis 10:32. So here's first chapter 9, verse 13. These are the three sons of Noah. This is speaking of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And then I'm going to read Genesis 10 or Bereshit 10:32. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations in their nations. And by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Can you go ahead and if you could read Genesis 9:19 in the Septuagint for me, please?
Yes, from the Greek Septuagint, Genesis. All right, let's see. At verse 19, these three are the sons of Noah. Of these were men scattered over all the earth.
And did you get a chance? Did you get a chance to check out that scattered? Did you check that out?
Yes, sir. And the word is, according to the lexicon, the word is kind of my Greek is very horrible. So so what I will do is
bring it out.
This is what I'm gonna do. Let me just pronounce. It's easier for me to pronounce than the Strong's. I'm looking at this lexicon. I don't read Greek very well, so bear with me just a quick second. Let's see. All right. That 1289. So it's 1289 the Strong's.
Mm-hmm.
And the word. Okay. And it's pronounced as, 1268 in the Strongs. And it's Dianemo, I believe.
Diamirzo, I want to say.
Exactly. And according to the lexicon, and the lexicon I'm using is a Greek lexicon of the Greek language. It is called Liddell and Scott's. For those who are interested, it's called Liddell and Scott's Greek lexicon. And it means to distribute, to divide among themselves, pass, to be spread abroad.
All right, so thanks for bringing that out. And I'm going to tell you why this is going to be so important, because when we get to Acts chapter 2, a lot of this same language comes back up. So going back again to Genesis 10:32, I don't even know if a lot of people think about this. When it says, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. I remember for the longest time, for me, I just thought they would just migrate, and I would read chapter 10 and see that the nations were split up. You got Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and then I would go to chapter 11, and I would miss the whole first verse. So if you read the end of 10, you see everything is divided. But then when you go to chapter 11, you see in verse 1, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So if we see throughout the table of nations in chapter 10 that everything is spread out, you actually see that all of these nations from Shem, Ham, and Japheth all have their own language. But then when we get to chapter 11, verse 1, they're of one language. So what I will submit to you is that chapter 11 is the precursor to chapter 10, meaning chapter 11 actually preceded chapter 10 in chronological events. And this becomes important when you understand what happens later in chapter 11, specifically with the Most High choosing Abram. Now, Abraham is the progenitor of Isaac, who is the progenitor of Jacob, and that becomes specifically important when we get to Deuteronomy. So, and I'm going to read this. I guess I'll read it in the Hebrew. I'm reading Genesis 10:32 because I want to specifically get to this word divided. Let me see. We got Elah Mishpot, B'nai Noah, La Tolatam, Toa-Datam, Be Goim Me Elah, Neredu Ha Goyim Ba'aretz Ahar Hamoabu Ke. And this word that we specifically are going to focus on is going to be the parad. When we're dealing with divide, this is actually meaning physically to specifically split something up, to divide something. And if you look at it in its proper context, it is showing that this was done. They didn't just wander off on their own. And I don't want to get into a deep Hebrew lesson, grammar lesson, grammatical here, going into different stems. I want to keep this light and keep it moving. But you have to understand, and it's going to be specific when we move into the next part of this lesson, that these nations were actually split up. All right. And so what else did I want to bring out real quick? All right. So now we're going to go to chapter 11 really quick, and we're going to read verses 7 through 9. I'm going to read this in English. And I'm not going to do too much reading in the Hebrew. I just will when I want to bring out certain words. And then if you guys want to call in and challenge something, feel free. And like I said, I'm not the professor. So if I don't know, I'll simply say I don't know. So we move into Genesis 11, verses 7 through 9. Excuse me. Go to, let us. This is what I believe to be the divine counsel. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Verse 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off and built the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. Can you read that for me in the Septuagint, please? Genesis 11, 7 through 9.
Yes, in the Septuagint, Genesis 11, verse 7, and it reads, "Come, and having gone down to let us there confound their tongue, that they may not understand each the voice of his neighbor. And the Lord scattered them thence over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city and the tower. On this account, its name was called Confusion, because there was the Lord confounded the languages of all the earth, and thence the Lord scattered them upon the face of all the earth."
And you got those words ready?
Yes, sir. And what we have is confounded. And we have, the pronunciation is Sunchuno, I believe.
Yeah, that works. K-O, but that works here.
All right, Sunchuno. And according to the Liddell Scott, we have, 756. And it reads, it means to commingle, confound, to be in confusion, to make ruinous, destroy, obliterate, demolish, to confound, to make none effect, frustrated.
And then you have you have confused as well?
Yes, I do. All right, hold on for a second. I'm going to Liddell Scott's again. This is a very good source to use when you're dealing with the Greek language.
Mm-hmm.
And confused means, according to the Greek, to be unstable, unsettled, not to be checked.
Man, so what we see happening here, and we will, let me address this in the Hebrew real quick. Time is moving. We're at Genesis 11, 7, and 9. I'm just going to, I won't read the entire verses because there's so much more that we have to get into. But the reason that I'm doing this, just to set the precedent, is because when you get to Acts chapter 2, these words become very important because you can see the writer, who is Luke in Acts, going somewhere with the words that he's using. So when we see this confound in the Hebrew, it is balal, and this is it is a qual stem. In the basic definition of this is let me make sure I'm getting this right. It's your Hebrew word 1101, and we're dealing with to mix, mingle, or confuse, which basically means he gives them this language and he mixes it up and he confuses it for them. So this, once again, and the reason that I'm harping on this is because when you read in that first verse in chapter 11, you see that they are of one language. But clearly when you go back and read in chapter 10, they were all split up. And this becomes very important now when you move on to chapter 11, and then you get to the end of 11 when you start reading about Abraham. And you come and you find out about this guy named Abram. And then when you get to chapter 12, you start to see it says, now the Lord, or the Creator, now Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh had said unto Abram, get thee out of the country from thy kindred and from thy father's house into a land that I will show thee. And I will make thee of a great nation, and I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And then we go to verse 3. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curses thee. Now here's the real kicker. And these shall all the families of the earth be blessed. See, the key to this is all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And we'll get into what that blessing is supposed to look like in a little bit. And I'm actually probably going to go back and read that again because I got a little ahead of myself. But I wanted to point out that the key to this is now we go from having the nation split up to Yah specifically calling one man of a specific lineage. And this is why in chapter 10 it's clear to tell you that Abram is of that lineage of Shem. And then chapter 11 reiterates that specifically that nation of Shem. And then we see Abram being called. So now what we're going to get into next is going to make sense. So now we're going to go to Deuteronomy 32. For those of you that are familiar with what we are talking about, this is probably one of the key passages, either this one or Psalms 82. I probably tonight will stay away from Psalms 82, except for explaining a couple of things, just because, like I said, this is not the goal of this is not to cause a stumbling block to anybody. The goal of this is to show you what we see in the text. So dealing with Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 and 9. I'll start at 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. I'm not going to get into the fact that we see a clear interaction between the Most High and Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. There's a whole lot of different ways we can go with that. But what we clearly see is that the Most High divided the nations, and the key verse here is verse 9, where it says, the Lord's portion is his people, Yaakov, is the lot of his inheritance. So now we combine this with Genesis 10 and 11, and we clearly see that these nations got split up, and the Lord's portion is Yaakov, whom Abram is the progenitor of. And that's why we clearly see him being called in chapter 12. This is directly tying in. It's showing you how in Deuteronomy 32, you see the nations being divided, and you see who they are divided by. And then in chapter 10 and 11, you clearly see Abram being called, and this ends up leading to Yaakov. Can you read that for me in the Septuagint, please?
Yes, sir. Deuteronomy 32. We're going to pick it up at verse 8. When the Most High divided the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the nations according to the number of the angels of God. Read verse 9.
Yes, sir, please.
And his people Jacob became the portion of the Lord. Israel was the line. I'm reading it one more time. Verse, I'm reading it
read that one more time. Yeah.
And his people Jacob became the portion of the Lord. Israel was the line of his inheritance.
Okay, I know you got them definitions on that, Sonny. So if you could bring out the became and the portion in the Greek, and then I'm going to bring them out in the Hebrew. And I know y'all think we creeping a little bit. We'll start speeding up in a second, but these words right now become very important. So can you bring out the became and the portion in the Greek?
Yes, sir. Let's go to became. All right. Now, according to the lexicon, I'm reading from the Thayers, because the Thayers also gives us a good definition that lines up with the Scots. So, in the Thayers, it's 172, section D, I believe. But this is what it says. Hold on for a minute. And it reads, hold on, my apologies. Hold on for a second. Let me just, hold on. Got sidetracked a little bit. Okay. I'm going to go to the Liddell Scots. for that word became, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the Greek word. I'm not going to butcher the pronunciation. I'm just going to read it, the definition. And it reads, to see, perceive, behold, a marvel to become, to look at. Him is in the face, to look so, looking helpless. To see mentally. Let's see.
What's that number?
They are the number. The number is in the Thayers is 172, and we have in the Greek in the Strong's word is 1491. So 1491. Let's go ahead. 1492 rather. Eidos, okay. It means perfect tense with a present meaning, significantly probably to having seen or perceived, to know, to have knowledge, whether absolutely, as in divine knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's for became. It also says to demand consideration. Frequently suggested inception or progress in knowledge. That sound about right to you, Brett?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And then go ahead and give me portion.
Okay, portion, according to the Thayers, is 400, number 400D. $400D, and the Strong's number is 3319, and the word is 3319 mesos. And according to the definition, let me go to Liddell. Let me go to the Scots on that one, because Scots is the one we really deal with. This is the one I want to deal with because it brings much clarity. So that's in the Liddell Scots Greek lexicon. Okay.
Right in your pages. You flipping them over there.
Yeah, man. Let me see. So the portioning means a dividing, a part, portion, share, parcel, a contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another definition, division, class, a part division or class.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So no, that's good. That's all we need for right now. So we clearly see what's happening here. We see a separation, a division of the nations, right? I don't want to keep harping on this, but we clearly see a separation of the nations. And then when we get to verse 9, portion is his people, Yaakov, right? So when we deal with portion, this is collect, and this is a masculine noun, and it is it's a portion, a share, a part, or a territory. This is one's specific portion or possession. Now, when you start to think, anybody that reads they Tanakh, now you can really start to see where we're going, especially if you think about the Shema. He's ours and we're his, right? Think about all the times you said, I will be your God and you will be my people. This is what we are seeing in the text. Okay, this is why this henotheism thought process becomes relevant, especially once we start to move in and see how many different quote-unquote gods or Elohim we see in the text, and then how they have some are actually said to have given possession of land to other groups of people. So once we start to really dig into this now, so now we're going to move in, we're going to start to see what this blessing looks like of Abraham, so we can really hone in on the direction that we want to go. Right? So we already talked about the first part of that Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12:3. And then if you go to Genesis 15:1, you read and after these things the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision. Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. If you do a word study on that word reward, this is a ransom. He is now ransomed and caved and given himself to Abraham. This is once again what we see in the text. Yaakov is Yah's portion. He is Abram's great and exceeding reward. These things are not accidentally in the text. This is clearly what our Creator is showing us, and He's showing us this for a reason. Now I'm going to go to Genesis 18:17 through 19, because I want to show you what we're talking about as it pertains to this covenant. So, and Yah said, shall I hide from Abram that thing which I do? This is before he's getting ready to bring the rain upon, I should say the fire. He's getting ready to bring it upon, bring that fire upon Sodom. So he said, and Yah said, shall I hide from Abram that thing which I do, seeing that Abram shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, that they shall keep the way of Yah, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abram that which he has spoken of him. I'm going to fast forward to this a little bit. When we're talking about this mountain now, this nation that we are supposed to be becoming, we all claim to be Hebrew Israelites. So that Hebrew that connects us to Abram, that Israelite connects us to Yaakov. If we are claiming that, and that means that we are now progenitors, we are grabbers of the Abrahamic covenant. That means that we are to be blessing the nation. We are to be trying to do justice, bring justice and judgment into the nations. Right? That stems upon actually acting out Torah. Like my brother always say, Torah is an action. So, if you look at this thing and understand how the bounds of the earth is set up, and that Yah has a portion, and then the rest of the nations have now been allotted something. They have to have something. They've been left over to something. And we'll get into what they have, because it's clear in the text what they've been assigned to, what has happened. So now we see clearly that as quote-unquote Hebrew Israelites, it is our job to step into this doing justice and judgment. That means that we are feeding the poor, helping the widow, judging the fatherless, right? Looking out for the orphans instead of fighting and shooting at each other proverbially on YouTube and even literally in these streets, because we don't know who we are and we don't know who our enemy is, right? And we'll get deeper into that in a second. So I'm going to skip some of what I had. I'm going to move forward now. We're going to go to because I think we've clearly set up now how Yah has his portion. And so now we're going to go into specifically dealing with the heavenly host, or what we call the divine council. All right? Because now this becomes specific and particular about how things are set up and how it works. Because there is a governing body, there is boundaries set, and there are rules in place. So the first thing that we're going to go to, we're going to go to Psalm 89. Psalm to the 89th division of Psalms. We're going to start at verse 5. You got that set up?
Yep.
Can you read that for me in the Greek real quick, please?
Yeah, in the Greek Septuagint, is actually, in the Septuagint, is Psalms 88.
Okay.
And it reads, verse 5, the heavens shall declare thy wonders, O Lord, and thy truth and the assembly of the saints. For who in the heavens shall be compared to the Lord, and who shall be likened to the Lord among the sons of God? God is glorified, and the counsel of the saints, great and terrible toward all that are around about him. Oh, wow. That's clear as day to me.
I mean, that sounds to me like it's clear, right? But we get a lot of people that play these games and say, oh, it's not saying what we think it's saying. So just to be clear, that sounds... Say what you wanted to say.
Semantics and all that. Nah, you know how you have individuals that love to play semantics and all that.
Right. So, but what we clearly see is some sort of pantheon. We see some type of interaction with what the Hebrew or what the English now writes in the KJV. God, this is verse 7, God is greatly to be feared in the assembly of the saints, and to be had in reverence of all them that are about him. It seems clear. It seems very clear to me what we are seeing. My question would be now, when because I know we're going to get some people calling in, or maybe we not. Maybe we just go straight through without any problems. But when you are dealing with this and you see these various types of words, the point that I want to point out right now is not so much whether or not this is divine beings yet. The point that I want to point out is that this is something that is happening in the heavens. Right? We clearly see this in the heavens. Verse 5, shall praise thy wonders, O Lord, thy faithfulness, also in the congregation of the saints. For who in heaven and who in the Shamayim can be compared unto Yah? Who among the sons of the mighty can be likened unto the Lord? And if we go to verse 8, O Yah Elohim of hosts, who is the strong Yah, like unto thee, or to thy faithfulness round about thee. If you listen to 8, you realize that it doesn't say who is the strong Elohim like unto thee. No, it says who is the strong Yah, because there is nobody compared to Yah. Once again, there are many Elohim. Now I can start to be just frank about it. You can see various Elohim in the text. You're not going to find another Yah. So when we get to text like that says Yah is the God of gods, yes, because he sits alone on high. He is over any other Elohim. Once again, he is the Elohim. No other Elohim is Yah. We clearly see that in the text. So if you're going to go against that concept, you have to explain how that works. I will get the Greek definitions, but we're going to come back to it. We're going to come back to it because we're getting pressed on time. Well, no, you know what? It's only 9 o'clock, and really we don't have a lot to deal with. We got any callers, Sal? We still good right now?
Yeah, we're pretty much still good. The number's 319-527-6239. Anybody want to call in? We have a lot of listeners. That's press number 1, and we'll add you in. Other than that, there's no callers at this time. You can continue. Oh, stand by. Right. We just already pressed number 1 just now. You ready for your questions?
Let's get it popping. Yeah, let's go ahead and see because now we're going to start going into explaining how this really works. So, yeah, if they got some questions now, let's get it popping.
All right, let's go to 443-815. You're live. 443-815. You're live.
Yeah, brother. This is Brother Mercy.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, Sal. Hey, how you doing? I just wanted to say that this is an excellent discussion about henotheism. I kind of want you guys to get a little deeper on that, but monotheism doesn't explain what we know about the Most High. And monotheism is really a white man's theology. But henotheism comes from the Middle East, really. And I just wanted to say that, we got to do more study into henotheism because we really don't know what it really, really means. But henotheism definitely does a better job of explaining the characteristics of the Most High than monotheism, because monotheism is just a white man's theology that the seminary schools learn. But henotheism comes from that part of the world where the scriptures were written. People have a multiplicity understanding of the Most High. That's why when the Most High is explained, you will see multiple characteristics of him. He says, I'm your reward and something else. Mm-hmm. He don't just say reward. He's never monotheistic. He always has multiple characteristics. And then he says, let us make man. I mean, that's clear, us. So, I mean, how do you skip over that? But I just wanted to say, I think this is a good discussion. We got to dive more into the henotheism because I think there's much to be explored, and I think that's why we have a disconnect from understanding y'all, because we just don't understand that he's not monotheistic at all. And that's all I want to say.
Yeah, Con. Thanks for calling in, Mercy. Just so I'm clear, what would you like for us to dig into a little more this evening, if we have the time to?
Yeah, I want you to explain more so of henotheism, making it more clearer what it is as it pertains to the scriptures. And what I mean by as it pertains to the scripture, because you may have multiple views of what henotheism is, but I'm talking about henotheism in relation to Torah. And okay. I think that needs to be dived in more. I mean, you went into different words, and I haven't heard everything y'all said. I'm just saying I've heard some of the stuff you guys said, but I'm talking about as it relates to Yah and how it's like. I mean, for example, you got the Father. He's called the Father, right? So that by deductive and process elimination, there must be a Son. There has to be, because you can't be called a father unless there's a son. So I just wanted to say that. I mean, because it's interesting, brothers. This is a very powerful discussion, and it will destroy Christians. I mean, not destroy, but it will modify the Christian belief as we know it, because we're going back to ancient understanding. And I don't know any Hebrew Israelites that. And it's crazy. Hebrew Israelites talking about they about black unity and all it is. But they don't understand monotheism is really a white man's theology. It really is. Our people understood that the Most High had a multiplicity of characteristics. Monotheism means one. Right. I mean, and if you look at the white man, how he sees himself in a monotheistic viewpoint. Like, I'm on top and everybody else less than me. Whereas henotheism looks at it more of equality. Even the Most High says, let us. So he does things in a group. It's not just what he thinks. I mean, what I'm saying, it's not just, I'm the Most High, it's whatever I say go. No. If you look at him, he takes a group way of looking at things, if I can make it sense. But that's all I want to say. That's it.
So that's what I wanted to know, because I wanted to know for sure what you wanted me to get into tonight. If we get to do a part 2 tonight, I'm not going to go into too deep into dealing with the Father. And the reason being is because we are divided enough. And this is more because, so now it's time for me to explain at least the way I see it right now. We're having a hard time even understanding the various Elohim in the text, yet alone understanding the complexity of Hashem. Right? If we are to really dive into the complexity of Yod He Wav He and dealing with El and Elyon, and then going into what we see in the Canaanite perspective and then bringing that forward into where we are now, we first have to get a grasp on these other Elohim that people say don't even ontologically exist, and show that not only do they exist, but they are also rebellious. We see this in the text. We actually see people get into arguments about whether or not they are angels or the sons of God. I'm going to let you people know. I'm going to let everybody know, family. If we're arguing about whether or not it's Malachim or B'nai Elohim, we actually are kind of missing the mark, because what we really see happening is a hierarchy. and this kind of going to spoil where we're going, but if we deal with Daniel 10 and 13, we see a Malachim bringing an angel or bringing a message. One regular angel bringing a message. Then he gets detained by what I want to say is either a Sare or Sar. So I want to say it's a prince. He gets detained by a prince, and then the chief prince, Michael. So you have your regular angel coming. He's bringing a message. He gets detained by the prince of Persia, and then the prince, our chief prince, Michael, or Mikael, has to come and put hands on him, do whatever they do in the spirit realm so the message can get through. And this is a 3-week thing. So we clearly see a hierarchy happening in that realm. And so now we're going to, most high willing, now going forward, we will move forward in that. But thank you for your call, Mercy. I just, tonight, to get into the complexity of that, would I think it would stir up the pot more than what we need right now. It's more about trying to bring clarity into at least understanding the various Elohim first, and then going into understanding the complexity. But I agree with you. It is something that needs to come out because, and I'm trying to be careful not to call it the white man's doctrine, but it is a European thing to go into this monotheistic thought. None of our ancestors in that part of the world believed anything about monotheism. If it was anything mono, it was monolatrism. Our God is the supreme deity. Y'all can worship y'all. Y'all go do y'all thing and worship those other gods, but we know what we worship. That's what we
exactly.
See.
Wow.
Right. Right.
You asked, hey, you
Right.
went there on, hey, it's crazy how you went there because we know where that comes from. We know who spoke and said the words. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I just like to chime in real quick. You know what I'm saying? This is real quick, bro. Notice how
we got time. Go
notice,
ahead.
audience, and for those who are listening, notice that we're not putting no one past Hashem. Hashem, or the Most High, or what Yahweh, or whoever you prefer to call the Father or the Creator. He is still the supreme El, or the supreme superior out of all. It says, let me just read it again in the Septuagint in verse 7. And it reads, let's see. For who in the heavens shall be compared to the Lord, and who shall be likened to the Lord among the sons of God? Verse 7. God is glorified in the council of the saints, great and terrible, toward all that are round about him. Who is him? Hashem, the Most High, the Creator, the supreme out of all. So this whole concept, this spookism about all other, no. There's only one true, and he is surrounded. What we are doing here, brothers and sisters, is that we're just going into the concept, and we're showing you that this is just the structure of the heavenly realms. This is how the Most High conducts himself in his surroundings. He has these surroundings.
In his congregation.
Exactly, his congregation. Exactly. So the thing is that we're just showing you the structure of how he operates in his domain. And remember, he is the supreme. There's no one calling the shots over him. He's the one that dictates and calls shots over all the rest that surround him. Remember, we're not promoting the worship of other gods. We're just showing you the blueprint. Go ahead, Art.
Now, so let's start to get into why this blueprint is necessary. All right, so now we're going to really start to address the heavenly host. This is what we would call the divine council, right? The reason that this becomes important is because these divine entities are not only up there just praying and worshiping and playing harps all day. They are actually involved with the day-to-day activities of things that happen here on the earth, right? In Haaretz, right? So when you understand the heavenly realm, right? We just read Psalm 89, 5-7. This should bring things to your mind like Job 38:7, when the Most High when he creates the world, and it says the sons of God and the morning stars shouted for joy, right? Or Job 1:6. Now, Job 1:6 and 1:7, Most High willing, we'll get into a little bit later. because you see some real specific verbiage in there that's showing that they come and present themselves, and this is not just they come in to say hi, right? This has an adversarial tone to it when you read it. It comes across not in a sense of peace and loving. It comes across specifically when you see Hasatan say, yo, how can I get at Job? You got a hedge around him. You protected him. You kept him from me. Right? That's not a concept or a conversation of peace. That's I want to get him, but you won't let me. So once again, that's showing you who the supreme creator is and then showing you his bad little children, so to speak. It sounds a lot like us as well. Now, when we go into the heavenly realm, the first thing that we need to know is where they meet. We've established that. They meet in Shamayim. The heavenly beings meet in Shamayim. So this should start to remove a lot of this man being Elohim talk. We clearly see in the text, and we have plenty of proof text. The only reason I'm not bringing it out is because I know that after tonight, some people are going to be coming for me, and I'm going to have to make sure that I got everything ready for the debate, so whatever. And also, I don't want to overload you with information. But you clearly see throughout the text that these beings are meeting in the heavens, in the Shamayim. So now let's deal with what their responsibilities are. And I know I'm skipping forward, but it's important to start to bring some of this stuff out, and I don't want time to get away from us. So let's go to 1 Kings chapter 22. And as I'm going over this with y'all, this is one of the first things for me that really jumped off the page for me and tied in a lot of these verses to understand how the hierarchy works. So for those that are not familiar with this, 1 Kings 22, I think I'm going to start like at 19 and then go all the way down to 23. Okay, so this is the prophet Micaiah. He's dealing with Ahab. And so Ahab, he wanna get a prophecy about going to war. And all of his prophets, they giving him lip service. They telling him what he want to hear. And he got a partner with him, and his boy is like, look, there's got to be a prophet of Yah around here somewhere. And Ahab is like, you know what, it is, but every time I bring this dude around here, he don't got nothing good to say to me. I don't want to hear nothing that he has to say. So they go to Micaiah, they start talking to him, and Micaiah is basically being real sarcastic with him. And they like, yo, and he looks at his boy and like, I told you he ain't got nothing good to say. So finally Micaiah say, okay, you really want to know the truth? Here we go. And so now we're starting at verse 19. And he, being Micaiah, said, hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw, and I'll say Yah, because I know people don't like this. I saw Yah sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And Yah said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said this manner, and another said on that manner. Verse 21, and there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. And Yah said unto him, wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now therefore, behold, Yah hath put a living spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets. A lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets. And the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. This is what Micaiah tells Ahab. So the first thing you need to understand is their responsibility is to interact with Yah while he is on the throne. The host of heaven come to him. So it works like this. He's sitting there and he said it's time for Ahab to die. What y'all got? I won't answer. I won't suggestions. He already knows what's going to happen, but he wants to participate with his creation, just like he wants to participate with us. So he brings in, he say, what y'all got? So here come one spirit. He say, yeah, I want to do this. We can see by this, if we can see the imagery, it says in verse 20, it says, and the Lord, who shall persuade him? And he said, and one spirit came and said this, and another said this manner. So one comes and says this, another comes and says that. So we can imagine he's like, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. And then finally one spirit comes and he says, look, I'll go down and I'll lie to his prophets. And Yah says, you know what, that'll work. Yeah, that'll work. And why will that work? Because he shouldn't be going to them false prophets in the first place. So yeah, that'll work. Go ahead, go down there and lie. Put some lies into their mouth, because he's so wicked already. It's time for him to go. Gotta go. Right? So the first thing that we see, their responsibilities are not only to interact and bring suggestions to y'all, but also to go down and press upon flesh. Now, I want to make this clear. These are what we would call the loyal beings in the heavens. Oh, don't worry, we're going to get into the disloyal beings in the heavens as well, because they do exist. I've heard some people say that there are no unloyal or disloyal beings in the heavens, that it's only beings that are doing everything that the Most High wants, and that's just the way it is. Well, I think Job 4:18 would kind of disagree with that. I think that Isaiah 24 would kind of disagree with that, and we'll get into that. But I want to prove this point out one more time. I'm going to give you one more verse to prove this point of these beings in the heavens working with Yah to bring about what he wants to see happen. So we go to Daniel chapter 4, the book of Daniel chapter 4. I'm just going to start at verse 13, and I'm going to read. I don't want to read 13 through 26, but I'll read and I'll jump around. I'll let you guys know when I'm jumping. So starting at verse 13, I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. So Daniel is now having a vision, and this word watcher is an Aramaic word that means angel. And just to be clear, the writer tells us again, a holy one came down from where? From heaven, from Shamayim. He cried aloud and said, thus, hew down the tree and cut off his branches and shake off his leaves and scatter his fruit, lest the beasts get away from under it and the fowls from the branches. Now, I'm not reading this to get into the prophecy about Nebuchadnezzar. I'm not getting into the prophecy about this. I'm getting into this to show you how these beings interact. So now we go down to verse 17, and it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the man by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know what? That the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to whomever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of man. And now I want to go to 20. I can't find that one because I didn't put it in my notes. But if you read further down, you find out that not only is it a decree from the watchers, but it is also stamped and approved by the Most High. And the verse I just read also brings that home as well. See, so what we see right now, family, is let's summarize to a certain extent. We have the nations being separated at the Tower of Babel. We have Yah getting his portion. And then we see the loyal angels now interacting with Yah to bring about various things that happen in the earthly realm, in the Eretz, Ha'aretz, right? So now let's move to the next point. We already went over that. I might come back to that. This is actually going really good. So now we're going to deal with these rebellious, and I consider these to be Elohim. I'm just going to make that clear to y'all. These spirits are Elohim. They're just beings. They're just spirit beings. So now let's go to Job 4:18. Do you have anything you want to say real quick, Ott?
Just a real quick, and again, the brother just said that he recognized that these other evil beings are Elohim as well. And again, we're not promoting them past Hashem. We're not promoting them to work. We're not promoting worship of these. We're just identifying who these individuals are in the heavenly realm. Am I correct?
Yeah, kind. And I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if you go back and listen to this, we did some good definitions in the beginning. If you're running around thinking that Elohim strictly just means something that's above, yeah, I implore you, get a better understanding of the Hebrew, get you some lexicons, get you a good Hebrew teacher, and really read this text, because the novice Hebrew reader understands that these Elohim are nothing compared to Yah. So
exactly.
I'm just going to quickly read Job 4:18. He says, "Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly." This is another reason why I say we shouldn't be fighting over whether or not these beings are called angels or malachim. Malachim is just a messenger. So what are we talking about, though? We're talking about a hierarchy. I think there's another good one, too, off the top of my head since I'm here. Since I stay in Job 15. Yeah, I'm just go Job 15, starting at verse 14. I'll read 14 through 16. Job 15, 14 through 16. "What is man that he should be clean? And he which is born of a woman, that he should be righteous? Behold, he putteth no trust in his saints. Yea, the heavens are not clean in his sight. How much more abominable and filthy is man, which drinketh iniquity like water." So this he, obviously, is the Most High. So when you get to 15, "Behold, he putteth no trust in his saints. Yea, the heavens are not clean in his sight. How much more abominable and filthy is man, which drinketh iniquity like water." So this is showing a distinction between the saints and man. If I look that up, that's either going to be Kodesh or it's going to be El. Various times through the writings, you will see when it says saints, there's sometimes when it says El, there are sometimes when it says Kodesh. The way you understand that in context is, like here in Job 15, it separates the difference between understanding the saints in the heavens and then man, right? There is a separation, a clear distinction between the beings in the Shamayim, or the heavenly council, the heavenly host, and then the what we would call Ish, man, or Adam. So here's some more rebellion. So now this is when we're going to go to Psalm 82, just to address a little bit of this. I know how some people feel about Psalm 82, and for those of you that don't understand it, I'll briefly break this down real quick. This is another key chapter passage that people go to. There's so many other passages for me. We just don't have to go here, but I will go here just because there is a key point at the end of this chapter. So Psalm 82, God, or Elohim, standeth in the congregation of the mighty. The word mighty is El. He judgeth among the gods. That's Elohim again. Now, what most people will tell you, most commentaries, most people will tell you that these are the judges. These are the judges who are called Elohim in Exodus. I would tell you that, first off, I think when you see Elohim in Judges in Exodus, it is a mistranslation. It's a bad translation. That's my personal opinion. I know that a lot of my brothers really don't agree with that. We can actually build on that in private. But what we see clearly here is, as we move down the line, that let's say the first part, let's say 82:1 is addressing the judges. As we move down and we get into 6 and 7, the person that it is talking to changes, right? This is how most people describe it. For me, and I'm going to explain to you when we get to verse 7, when we go here, I'll explain to you why I say this. So going down to verse 6, so it's 82:6 and 7. I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. When you get to this, I have said you are gods, that gods is Elohim, and all of you are B'nai El, children of the Most High, right? But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Now, when it says, but ye shall die like men, Why is he telling a man that he's got to die again like a man? Every man knows that he has to die. That's number one. Number two is you shall fall like one of the princes. This princess is the word sarde. That is the word that is used for those original judges and elders that Moses delegated in Exodus 18. Go back and study that. Go back and do some word studies in Exodus 18, Exodus 21, Exodus 22, and then compare some things that you see in like Joshua chapter 6 or 7, and you will start to see some of this. But it's clear here that at least when it says, I have said you are gods and you are children of the Most High, and you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. When you read that and parse that out in the Hebrew, it is clear that he is now talking to divine beings. You are Elohim, and you are children of the Most High, but you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Why would they die like men and fall like one of the princes? Because they were rebellious. Now, I'm going to poke at one brother in particular. I'm not going to say his name, but he's going to know who he is when I say this. This is the reason why in Genesis 3, with the Nakash, this cannot just be some lone serpent that just decided to go and talk to Eve. Main reason is because that Nakash was cursed. Now, the only other time you see an actual animal talking, if I'm not mistaken in the text, is when you're dealing with Balaam. And the only reason that donkey was able to talk is because spirit had pressed upon his flesh. The only reason that Nakash was able to talk is because something had pressed upon that Nakash or that snake's flesh. So even if you want to say it's a real snake, something had to press on it. But regardless of the fact, it was cursed. When do you ever see y'all cursing somebody because they did what he wanted them to do? You have to be logical when you read these things, family, right? It is clear that there are beings, we'll just say beings right now, with ontological existence that can be disobedient, that can rebel and go against what the rules and the plans are of Yah. Did you want to add anything out? Because I'm finna get going now.
Nah, you just go right ahead. I can go right ahead.
I'm finna get going now. So, staying with this rebellious spirit type situation. No, I'm gonna come back to that one in a second. I'm gonna go to Deuteronomy 32. Excuse me, Deuteronomy 32. Y'all got me talking, man. 32, starting at verse 15. So Deuteronomy 32:15. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat. Thou art grown thick. Thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy. With strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. 17. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not. To new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Let's address 17 for a second. So they sacrificed unto devils. This word devils is shadim, right? The root of it, the base of it is shed. This is talking about, well, I'm going to let y'all do some research. But they sacrificed unto devils, right? Not to God, Elohim, but to gods, this is Elohim, whom they knew not. So this is clearly calling these devils, these shadim, Elohim, who they knew not. New Elohim that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Right? It doesn't say who your fathers didn't acknowledge existed, whom your fathers said they had no ontological existence, whom your fathers feared not. We're not scared of them. They out there, but we just not worried about them because we rocking with the Most High. You understand what I'm saying? To act as if, once again, that these beings have no ontological existence and that they have no power is to put yourself in a situation where when you come under spiritual attack, i.e. we see happening in Job 1:6, 1:7, when Hasatan is allowed to attack Job. He is allowed to attack and bring every manner of plague, disease, calamity upon this brother. And he didn't have to go to, every time he wanted to do something to Job, he didn't have to go back up to Shamayim and say, yo, can I do this? Yo, can I? No, it was clear from the beginning. Just don't kill him. You can do whatever else you wanted to, just don't kill him. So these beings have the power. These beings have the power to interact with us here on earth. So that means, what are you supposed to guard? Your soul. What are the gates to your soul? Your mind, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your taste buds, your skin. So let's make this plain for a second. If you know that you have a problem with alcohol, you probably shouldn't be around alcohol. If you know you have a problem with lust, you should stay away from things that are going to make you lust. If you know you have a problem with smoking some type of drugs or things like that, the simple smell will cause you to crave after that thing. It'll drive you crazy, right? That is how these spirits interact with you. That is how these beings will press upon your flesh. That is their job. That is what they're here for now. So let's, you know what? Because I think, you know what I'm saying, I haven't gone deep enough into explaining who these gods are, or any geographical situation. So now I'm going to show you clearly that there is geographical distinction or geographical rulership in various areas as it pertains to these beings. You know what? Let me do this one. Judges 11. Is this right? Right. All right. So this is Jephthah. So we're going to go to Judges 11. It says Jephthah, so I won't go too deep in Hebrew. But Jephthah, they're about to go to war. And this is with the children of Ammon. And so what we see happening is they send in letters back and forth. All right? And so they get to a point where basically Jephthah is trying to find out, like, why is there a problem? Why are you beefing with us? And so the king comes back and he says, because y'all took my land. Basically, because the children of Israel took our land, we want our land back. So this is what Jephthah comes back and says. I'll just start at 21. And the Lord God, or Yah Elohim of Israel, delivered Sihon and all of his people into the hand of Israel. And they smote them, so Israel possessed all the land of the Amorites, the inhabitants of that country. And they possessed all the coast of the Amorites from Arnon even until Jabuk, and from the wilderness even until Jordan. So now Yah Elohim of Israel hath dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel, and shouldest thou possess it? Now let's go to 24. Wilt not thou possess that which Chemosh, thy Elohim, giveth thee to possess? So whomever Yah, our Elohim, shall drive out from before us, them will we possess. So in case you missed it in verse 24, wilt not thou possess that which Chemosh, thy Elohim, giveth thee to possess? So if this being has no ontological being, he has no power, he is nothing but a mere worthless, nothing idol. Not saying that he can't be worthless without having ontology. Let's make that clear. Right? You can have things that's worthless. Some of us got some little teenagers in the house that's worthless. They living, but they not taking out the trash. They're not doing nothing they supposed to do. So that makes them worthless. I'm not saying your kids is worthless, but this is the example that I'm painting for you, right? Because there are some other people that say, well, no, they're nothing. Yes, they are worthless when you compare them to Yah. When you compare them to Yod Hey Waf Hey, he is there all alone. They are worthless compared to him. 24, once again, will not thou possess that which Chemosh, thy Elohim, thy God, giveth thee to possess? So that means that this being Chemosh has the ability to hand out land, and there is a border around it. That means he has an inheritance. He has a portion. Remember, that's the reason we spend so much time on those early breakdowns. Chemosh has his portion. Ashtaroth has her portion. Milcom has his portion. Marduk has his portion. Dagon has his portion. These are all gods written inside of this text, inside of this Tanakh. But none of them got anything on Yah. That is the point of the Tanakh. Not that these beings don't exist, but that at any given point in time, Yah will bust their head, especially if he says, let my people come through there, and you choose not to let them come through there. We see that happening a lot in Numbers.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely. Just to let you know, bro, Sal had to step away. So go ahead and keep doing what you got to do.
All right. So I'm going to drive this home one more. I'm going to give you a couple more proof verses just to let you know that this thing is really set up. And I went over it for a second, but I don't know if we really understand what's going on in Daniel chapter 10. So I'm going to take us back to Daniel chapter 10, and we're going to start at verse. I'll start at verse 12. But just to give you, for those of us that may be unfamiliar, give you context. Daniel is praying, and he has been waiting to get a message. He's been waiting for 3 weeks to try to get a message. He's trying to get something back. He's trying to get some understanding back. And so in the process of him praying, this is what happens. An angel shows up, and he says, basically, don't be afraid. Here we go. I start at verse 12. Then he said unto me, this is Daniel talking, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, or thy Elohim, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. Verse 13. But the prince, the prince of the kingdom of Persia, withstood me 21 days. But lo, now, for all of those people that try to say, but the prince that withstood me, that's just a regular person. If you try to tell me that Michael is a regular person, we're going to have a problem. So, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. So we see a lot going on in just this one, in these two verses. First off, the one that is talking to Daniel is a malak, or a malakim. He's an angel, one of the angels, right? But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, so evidently there is a prince of the kingdom of Persia in the spiritual realm that is over Persia, withstood this messenger malakim to the point where Michael, who is the chief prince of Yisrael, had to come and help him, had to come and help that malakim. Now, understand this. The reason that it was so contentious is because that chief prince, or that prince of Persia, was in his jurisdiction. So Michael had to come into that other prince's jurisdiction to put the smack down on him, to let him know, no matter what you do, if we want to get a message to our people, no matter where they scattered at, we'll come through and get that thing done. That's exactly what you see happening. And just so you don't think it's an isolated incident, let's go ahead and go to the same chapter, chapter 10. Now we're going to go to verse 20. Then said he, knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia, and when I'm gone forth, lo, the prince of Greece shall come. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael, your prince. Can you tell me, does that seem straightforward, or am I just crazy and just dabbling in spookism?
Man. I agree with you, right?
I'm just asking because this seems pretty straight. This seems pretty straightforward, right? I mean, you're dealing with beings that are being rebellious, that are being disobedient. Once again, why do you see a malakim bringing the message, and then another Malachim fighting with him, unless there is some type of beef, there's some type of rebellion. And just so you know what's going to happen to them that keep doing this? To those that continue, to those rebellious spirit beings, because you see this clearly in the text. Let's go to Isaiah 24. So I'm going to start at Isaiah 24, and I'm going to read all of it, but we're not going to go into the holding place, right? But I'm just going to read all of it for context. Starting in verse 20. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage. And the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. And it shall come to pass in that day that Yah shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high. And just to let you know, it goes even clearer to let you know that there's a separation. And the kings of the earth upon the earth. So it's showing you here in verse 21 that there's going to come a day where Yah punishes the host of the high ones that are on high and the kings of the earth that are upon the earth. Then go to 22. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. We're not going to get into, Sheol or whether it exists or anything like that. That's above most of our pay grades. We're not even dealing with that. What we're dealing with right now is the clear interaction between these beings. All right, that's cool. That's the perfect timing. Sal said we got a caller, so let's go ahead and get that caller, Sal. I'm going to get some water real quick. I'm listening, though. Sal, you there?
Yeah, 443, you're live. 443, you are live. Probably got us on mute. 443-815, are you there? All right, I guess I'll work on getting them in the background. Continue.
Okay, all right. You got anything you want to bring out real quick?
No, I just wanted to say there's something similar to how you had mentioned how Michael came and fought the other spirit that was holding up the spirit that Daniel needed to get to, or needed to get to Daniel, rather. There's another situation in the Apocrypha that's a little different, but in the book of Tobit, when the angel or the messenger Raphael had accompanied Tobit to go deal with another spirit, and there was a spirit that was on a woman that was killing every time she got married, the husband would get killed. So Raphael had to go chase that evil spirit up out of there, and it says in the book of Tobit that this evil spirit ran and it went and hid, or it got bound in Egypt. It had to go to Egypt for some reason. Don't know the actual reason why it had to run and go to Egypt, but it said that when Raphael had gave Tobit a few things to chase the evil spirit out of the house of the woman, then Raphael went and chased him into Egypt and bound him there in Egypt. Just something that was kind of a little similar, but a little different as well. That's all I just want to bring it out.
But yeah, but it's the concept. See, when you that's an excellent point. Excellent point, right? And we see this same type of concept going on in the New Testament, and we're going to move there in a little bit. But this, I hope the point that we are making, and I want to make it clear, I am not above correction. If there is something that I messed up on or I'm mistaken about, I am clearly open to hearing that. But please understand, you can't just come and say, well, I don't like what you're teaching, or no, you are, I'm not going to poke. You are doing things that we have not been told to do by our Creator. Yet, that's not true. Our Creator has told us to worship Him, to put love and trust in Him, and not to worship those other gods, not to place not to deal with those other gods. Well, guess what you are doing by allowing them to beat you in spiritual warfare? You are playing with them. You are worshiping them, right? I don't want to go and run down the various gods and their areas of expertise. Like, oh, this is the god of sex, and this is the god of money, and this is the god of this. That's giving them too much credit. But these beings have specialties that they work in. And if you are getting too wrapped up in various areas, you find yourself being interlocked and intertwined with all of these other things. Guess what? You are under spiritual attack, and you don't even know it. You won't even know it because you're too busy putting your head in the dirt like an ostrich, being scared of some being that don't got no power over you. But no power doesn't mean it don't exist. It just means that they don't have no power. Right? Period. Point blank.
All right, that call is actually back, or whenever you're ready.
All right, yeah, let's bring him in, and then I'm going to start dealing with some of these objections that I've gotten. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Brother Mercy again. And, I'm going to keep it on the surface. But what I was going to say, though, is you have to look at Yahweh in terms of an inheritance. So if you're just trying to stay in America and you're not trying to take possession of what's yours, you will never understand what you guys are talking about, henotheism. Because all that does is Yahweh explaining himself in terms of an inheritance, in terms of that's what that's all about. When you talk about gods and him as the hierarchy, what you're talking about in terms of an inheritance, because he always referred to Israel as his inheritance. So when you think in terms of an heir and in terms of inheritance and a prince and so forth, that's in terms of who assumes the throne if something happens to the king. But we know nothing happens to the father. So, but if something happens to the son, then the father has no heir to pass his blessings on to. So this henotheism helps you understand. It gives Yah a person to be heir to his inheritance, if that makes sense. So as long as we're slaves in Egypt or America, we'll see Yah in a monotheistic terms with no heir. So I guess since you don't want to get too deep, I want you guys to touch on inheritance and how this explains who he is. But that's it.
Yeah, no, that's incredible because we talked about that earlier. So I know that you had said you came in a little late. We went into Deuteronomy 32. So, and that, it's awesome that you said that because we may have people that's just now coming in and maybe tuned in late. So now I'll just re-summarize again. If we start from the beginning of where we started dealing in Genesis or Bereshit 9 and 10 when you have these nations. And like I said earlier, Genesis 11 is actually a precursor to Genesis 10. Genesis 11 chronologically had to happen before Genesis 10 because in Genesis 11:1, we clearly see that all the nations are of one language. They decided to go do some foolishness. To the best of my knowledge, scholarly, I think they went to go build a ziggurat. But other people have other beliefs. I'm not here to fight about what they did, but whatever it was, it caused the council to go down and say, look at what they're doing, let us go down and confound the language, right? This is clear in the text. It says, let us go down and do this. And then it says what the Most High did. Just how you see in Genesis 1:28 or Genesis 3:22. It's always they like, let us make man, or they have become like one of us. I'm going to do this. So you always see the same concept, right? The same thing you see in Deuteronomy 32 and 8. When the Most High divided the nations, right? So let's just see. Let me see if I can do this. Be hanhel elyon goyim be haprido bnei adam yasev gebulot amim le mispar bnei Yisrael. Right. So when the Most High divided, Ben Hanhel divided the nations, Goyim, right? Or when the Most High divided, he separated Be Haprido, the sons, Bene of Adam, Adam. He set Seb, it means he set. He actually placed perimeters, this bounds. Gebulot, a mean of the people. Le mispar, according to the number, Bene Yisrael, of the sons of Israel. Right? So when else do you ever see in the text where the Most High divides the nations? The only time you see the nations divided is in Genesis 11 at the Tower of Babel. And then immediately after that, what does he do, like Brother Mercy was talking about? He goes right to his inheritance. He immediately starts talking to Abraham. That is essential to understanding what is happening. He disinherited everybody. Everybody was done. And then he goes and chooses by lot. I would say they cast lots, but he goes and chooses Jacob, who is the offspring of Abraham. This is why he's telling him clearly that that your seed is going to get it. Your seed is going to get it. Your seed is going to get it, because his inheritance is Jacob. But he had to set the foundation with Abraham. Right? And then if you go to 9, just so you don't think, let me bring this one up too, so it's not a game. Deuteronomy 32 and 9. Ki halek yod he wav he amoy Yaakov or Yaakov hebel nahalato. Where's it? Okay, there we go. Yeah. Habel nahalato. This halato is the inheritance, right? Habel, the lot, Yaakov. So Yaakov is his Habel, is his lot. If we are claiming to be those people, we are Yah's portion. Chalek, we are his Chalek, his portion. You understand that? We are his inheritance. Now, I know what Mercy wants me to bring out about the interaction between El Elyon and Yod He Wav He. And these things should be ringing some bells and should be ringing some alarms in the people's ears about the difference between, how do I want to address this? I would just leave it at this. We are Yah's portion. I'll lightly say that Yah is a representative because we see Yah on a lot of other entities in the Tanakh. But just for keeping it plain and simple sake, is Mercy still there, Sal?
Yeah,
I'm
still here.
I'm listening.
Yeah, so this is the point that I was bringing out clearly, is that Yaakov is that inheritance, is that lot for the Lord. And when you see lot, that gives you the connotation of casting lots. So once again, we shouldn't be so quick and high and mighty to think that we are so special, because it could have been another group of people that got chosen. But we got chosen so we could bring about this Abrahamic covenant, this mountain, this thing that does right justice and judgment in the land, in the nations. We are to bless the nations. Remember, all of these nations, once the world got repopulated after the flood, all of these nations are what? If we go back to verse 8, they are sons of Adam. They are B'nai Adam. But out of all the B'nai Adam, Yaakov is the inheritance of Yah. So with that comes a great responsibility, not this, oh, we just better than, you look like this so you don't get it, you act like this so you don't get it. No, it is our job first to get it, then to implement it. And then those that want to cleave, yes, there are some things that they have to do to cleave, but they still can cleave. But period, point blank, we are his inheritance. We are his portion. Is that the point that you're getting at, Mercy?
Yes, but also I wanted to say, this is what I wanted to say. Yes, that's true. But how does that point us back to henotheism? I want you to point the inheritance back to Yahweh.
The easiest way I do that without doing what you want me to do is show that the rest of the nation, so I'll go here, because I know what you're getting at, and I'm not doing that tonight. This is the first time I'd have had some peace. People ain't trying to fight me on the internet. I want to say I want to be cool the rest of the summer. You know what I'm saying? So I'll go to Deuteronomy 4, and I'll do this part. I'll show this part rather than you, my brother, boy. I appreciate that. Look, so this is what I'll do. I'm gonna go to Deuteronomy 4:19, and I'm gonna do this part of the henotheism, so we make this clear. All right. Deuteronomy 4:19. And this is Moshe talking to the children. He says, "Unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars," sorry, Kemet, "even all the hosts of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord or Yah thy Elohim have divided unto all nations under the whole heaven." If you understand what this is telling you, the reason that these people are worshiping the moon and the sun and the stars and all of these other gods is because that is their inheritance. They have been divided out to that. We are Yah's portion. All praise to the Most High that the Most High Creator saw it fit to make us His inheritance. He chose us by lot. We are His lot. We are His portion. But the rest of the nations, they belong to Chemosh. They belong to Milcom. They belong to Ashereth. That's why you are not to revile the gods, the Elohim, nor curse your rulers. Those are two separate entities. We don't have to deal with the other gods. We don't gotta hate them. We don't gotta love them. We just have to deal with our Creator and get to know Him and get to know the complexity. And this is where Mercy really wants to go. Get to know the complexity of His nature. Get to know the complexity of His being, because it is much deeper than just saying, you know what, I'm just going to attack this part of it. This ignorance about the name, I'm going to tell you what you're doing when you're going around fighting over the name. I'm not saying that we shouldn't get a deeper understanding of the language, but you turn it into a game. It's like an incantation. It's like that old movie, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Like you say it 3 times and all of a sudden things get better. That's not how this works. This name is a power. It is an authority. And that authority, and then I'll leave it at this because then we'll start that authority, that name, can be transferred. And those of you that can receive that. Right? When this thing about, go ahead. Who got something to say?
No, I was going to say this, like how you were saying how Israel is the Most High's portion. That's why it's very important, and it's written in the prophets, Israel, a light to the nations. Wow. Why? You see how it all makes sense now? We supposed to be a light to the nations because we serve the true and living supreme force known as you know who. So that's
Israel.
Israel who? Oh, okay. All right.
Now I'm going to shut up.
It makes sense.
Yo, y'all finna have people trying to get at me, man. It is what it is. Look, read your Bible, man. That's all I'm going to tell you. Read your Bible because it's in here. But you do. You see a clear interaction between El Elyon and Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. And I will say, I'll leave it here. I think the reason that there is so much fight about the renewed covenant, new covenant, Berit Hadajah, whatever you want to call it, is because this lack of understanding of the name, of the authority, of the power. We have a family name. We have a family name. Like, I got a family name. And you best believe that, I got a daughter who's getting ready to go to high school. But if I send her to go stay with some of my people and they say my name, Those people who love me, they're gonna take care of her. They're gonna move heaven and earth to take care of her, because I would do the same if they sent their children out here. This is the same concept, right? These other lower Elohim, because y'all understand, ain't no big G, little g in the text. There's no capital God, lowercase God. It's just Elohim. But there's only one Yah. And that Yah is a name. It is an authority. And I hope that y'all can understand what I'm getting at when I say that, because I don't feel like picking no fights tonight. Let's go to Deuteronomy 4:35, because now we're going to deal with some of these objections real quick, and then I'm going to try to move us forward on into the New Covenant, or the New Testament, I should say, and try to tie all this in so you can understand why this lesson is mission critical. Devarim or Deuteronomy 4:35. So the other objection that we always hear to this concept is things like there is no God above, beside, behind, in front of, yada yada. You know the terminology. We would agree with that. There is no Elohim at the same level of Yah. We've been saying that all night.
Pardon interruption, gentlemen. Pardon interruption. Just letting you know we got another caller standing by whenever you're ready.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, because then once I get into this, I don't want to stop. So, yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, 876, you're live.
Greetings, men and brethren. My name is Megas. I've been listening to the show for a little bit over an hour right now. I'm from Jamaica, and I guess this is one of the first times I've been listening to a presentation from Anonymous Hebrew, other than from collaborations on other shows. I wanted to personally hear from you, because I didn't get to catch from the beginning when you went into the definitions in terms of Henotheism. So I wanted to understand from your point of view without, any previous knowledge that I had. So what's this concept of Henotheism? Is it, say, Yah is the supreme God, and there are other gods that are designated to the other nations outside of Israel?
That's the easiest way to sum it up. Come on.
Okay, thank you. And so, as the children of Israel are allowed or required to worship Yah, do the people of the other nations, are they required to worship the other gods that are designated to them?
When you say required, I know we are required. The way I understand it, especially when we read in Deuteronomy in various verses, is that these nations were allotted other deities, so to speak. And it is our job to bring them out of that. And that was my overall mission statement when I started. It is our job, our goal, our mission to bless, in terms of the Abrahamic covenant, to bless the other nations of the world. And part of that blessing is to bring them into the knowledge of Torah and into the worship and adherence to Yah as the supreme creator or deity. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you for that response. Following along that line of thought, you're saying that these other gods that the nations were, how would you say, the other nations were the portions for the other gods. And you're saying that according to the Abrahamic tradition, that the children of Abraham, more so the Israelites, are to teach the other nations about the Most High God?
Okay.
And in doing so, though, what would be there left then for these other gods? Because basically, it's like removing water from a few volumes of cups and pouring it into one big volume. So at some point, these other cups are going to be empty. So if all the people of all the other nations are poured out of those nations and now they're in Israel, what becomes of these other gods, or what people would then be given to them to signify their significance and so forth?
They are punished. They are punished because, to my understanding, the purpose of those gods were to bring the nations to rule fairly, to judge circumspectly, and to work under the auspice of Yah. But they have been rebellious. They have judged improperly. This is why Psalms 82, 6 and 7 says, I have said you are gods, but you will die like men. Isaiah 24, 20 through 24, especially 20 and 21, are great verses that explain that. And I'll just read 21 for you. And it shall come to pass in that day that Yah shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high and the kings of the earth upon the earth. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. And in 23, then the moon shall be confounded and the sun ashamed, when Yah of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem and before his ancients gloriously.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, then basically because of rebellion, of the incorrect judgment of these other gods over these nations, then these other gods are going to be judged, and the nations that were allotted to them will be taken from them because of their injustice?
Right now, they either have a choice to cleave, or they will also be judged and punished as well.
So these other gods, can they repent?
I don't know that. There's certain things I just don't know. I can't answer that question.
All right, fair enough. I appreciate that. So, was there a God that was designated over the people that the prophet Jonah went to?
In Nineveh?
Right.
Is there a God in particular that you know of in that area?
For the Ninevites, was there a God that was over that nation of people?
Like I said, I'm not familiar if there was a God in that area. Is there a God that they worship specifically that you know of? Does the text speak of a God in that area?
Well, I don't see that from the book of Jonah. I guess we'd have to go into the history of the Ninevites and see where people come from.
I haven't studied the Ninevites to that length to know. I haven't even studied all of the gods at length. I'm just showing you what I see in the text, and what we see in the text is a God like Chemosh is allowed to give possession of land to those of Ammon, right? We see that in the text. We clearly see the interaction of these Elohim with the other nations.
So, I guess it would be tough for me to continue with the Ninevites and so forth, since you haven't historically studied them to say whether or not there was a specific God that ruled over them that was different from any other nation.
What was the point you wanted to get to? What was the point you wanted to get to with the Ninevites? We can still explore it. I'm not opposed to it. What was the point you wanted to get to?
All right, thank you. We see that after Jonah went there and told them the message that Yah gave him to tell them, we see that the entire nation repented. Mm-hmm. And so that would result in them now learning about God and his judgments and his statutes, and learning how to follow those judgments and statutes and keep them, and even teach them to the following generations that would follow after that. So my question to that then, what then would leave if there was a God over that nation? Then did that God move to another nation? Does he no longer have any nation to rule over and so forth? Because those people repented and they started to following Yah.
Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, what I would say would be, one, we don't know that everyone repented.
Okay.
Number two, these deities are allowed, especially at that time, and this is why. And can I ask you one quick question before? Do you adhere to any of the teachings in the New Testament at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So what I would say is, when we get to the New Testament and we see this mission of Mashiach, we see him breaking the hold of these other entities over the nations. This is a lot of what we see going on with Paul's missionary journeys. And most high willing, I will be able to get into that tonight. In terms of these entities that are over the nations, this is a geographical cutout, right? So they still have their area. And so, like I said, one, we don't know who all repented. We don't know that everyone repented. But two, more importantly, the end has not come yet. So until the end comes, things keep going, right? There's new people coming in. When I was in sales, one of the ways you say is people die, people move away, and people upgrade. So at some point in time, that whole generation of people had to move out or die or move on, and then there's a new generation where this entity is allowed to continue to corrupt the people. We clearly see people being corrupted in various nations, and it is our job to be that light to the Gentiles.
Yeah, that's our responsibility because we serve the true and living, and we know better. So it's our job to make sure that we're conducting ourselves properly, especially when we come in the name of the Most High, because that's what Israel will do. Israel will scream out the name Hashem all day long, but as you can see at times, we tend to fail. So it's best that we continue to make sure that we're doing our job, since we understand and believe and know that we serve the true and supreme and ultimate living.
Yeah, that call actually just dropped. Well, you can continue. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. Anybody have any questions, you can press number 1 right now. We'll add you in the conversation, or send me an email, debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. We'll take some of your questions and your comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank the caller for calling. I want to thank Mercy for calling. Anyone else, call in, ask the questions. I will answer it according to what I see in the text. I'm not one of those dudes who's going to make something up to you. All we can do is answer what we see according to the text. But that was an excellent discourse. I like that. All right, so as I was saying, some of these objections that we see, the main objection that we see is that there is no God beside, above, beyond, beneath. And to a certain extent, it's true. I mean, there is no other Elohim at the level of, it's not going to happen. You're not going to find it in the text. It's meant to be that way. You shouldn't have anything other. So, like, if I go to Deuteronomy 4:35, unto thee it was showed that thou mightest know that Yah, he is Elohim. There is none else beside him. Let me see if I can bring this up. 36, 35, is it 35 or 36? 35, none else beside him. The easiest way I can explain this to you guys is these are statements of comparability, right? These are not statements of a lack of ontology. These are statements of nothing compares, okay? There is nothing that compares to yeah, there's no way that you will find anything that compares. Separation alone by itself. So if we go to the Brown Drivers Briggs, this word besides is bod. And the first thing that you see is with. There is nothing with, only in singular. Properly in state, and this is Brown Drivers Briggs, separation alone by itself. Right? So there is, when we say there is nothing with, there is nothing with Yah, there is nothing beside Yah. There's nothing even that exists alone by itself outside of Yah. You cannot exist outside of the power that is in the name, that is in his authority. He has the authority, the power over everything. So whenever you continue to see this, there's nothing beside him, there's nothing beside him, there's nothing beside him. There is nothing beside him. That does not mean nothing exists. Right? In basketball, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, even to this long state, I believe is still the leading scorer. There are other phenomenal players, but there is nobody next to him in terms of being the best scorer. But now when we take that and compare that to Yah, there is nothing else ever. The best scorer, shooter, rebounder, passer, he's everything. That does not negate existence. That just negates comparability. We are saying that nothing compares, will ever compare. Nothing will come close. Let's see, Deuteronomy. Now, and the crazy thing is when we read these texts, they're usually preceded or like even before or behind where it's talking about he is the God of gods. He is above all gods. So you have to explain how he is the God of all gods, the Elohim of all Elohim, but then no other Elohim exists. Listen, by saying that, you are truly, one, negating his ability to create other entities. Two, so what you're saying is we have this all supreme God, and we're comparing him to a bottle, right? You're comparing him to the idol that they have made, but the idol is separate from the entity that these nations were expecting to inhabit that idol. Right? You have to be clear and understand that these entities are out here to do damage to us. And if you will not cleave and understand this Torah and truly get away from that and get away from the demonic attacks, you will continue to lose. That is just the perspective that I see in the text. And I believe that is one of the main reasons that we are staying confounded. So that and I'm gonna give you a couple proof texts really quick just to drive this point home. So I'm gonna turn to Isaiah 47. Isaiah 47, I'm gonna start at verse 8. So this is Babylon. This is talking about judgment of Babylon, right? So 47 and 8. Therefore hear now this, thou art given to pleasures that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. And in 10, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, and thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge that hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. Now, Babylon is a city. So it's saying, I am, and there is none beside me. If you're telling me that there is no other city that exists besides Babylon, then we got an issue. Once again, in Zephaniah 2:15 says the same thing with Nineveh. Right? Once again, these are statements of comparability. This is littered throughout the Tanakh. It's littered throughout the text. There is nothing that compares to Yah. So, just a quick recap, because now we're going to try to go into the, you know what, I do want to read these real quick, because these are some other good ones. I'll just tell y'all where to look at. All right, 1 Samuel 26, 17 through 19 is another one, is a good one with David. David basically says, I have been driven out beyond the inheritance. because now we're talking about the geographical location, circumference of these deities. He said he had been ran so far out away from the land, running from Saul, that he was saying, I've been driven away from the inheritance. I've been driven away from the land. You see the same thing happen in 2 Kings chapter 5, 17 through 19. This is Naaman. Naaman is a leper. He's in Syria. He has this slave girl in his house. She tells him, you can go to Israel. There's some prophets over there. So they write some letters. He gets to come. He comes and sees Elisha. He sees the this thing is so simple for Elisha. He doesn't even see him. He sends a representative. He tells him, just go bathe in the Jordan 7 times. Go dip yourself in the water. Naaman is hot. He's like, why do I have to do this? We got big rivers. We got way larger bodies of water in Syria. And his people that are with him say, my Lord, just do it, please. Just, if he would have told you to do some crazy thing, you would have did that. So just go do this. So he goes and does it. Boom, the leprosy's cleared up. He runs back to the prophet. He says, let me give you something. And he comes to him and he says, I know now that the God of Israel is God. There's no other God. Now, when you study that contextually, you find it's a conditional phrase, meaning the only reason he can say there's no other God is because he has a God to compare him to. He has another entity to compare him to. In other words, when you say, but I said there are no gods, you're right. Compared to God, you're not even an Elohim at all. But that does not negate existence. So when you read these texts and you see these things, and then the wildest thing that you see happen is Naaman is getting ready to go back, and he comes to the prophet and he says, can I take a bunch of dirt back with me? I want to take bags of dirt or this earth back with me, because when I go back, the king is old, and I have to help him bow down. He bows down to the God of Ramon. And, I want to take this with me, because sometimes I got to bow down with him, and I want to have this earth. I want to have this piece of Israel with me while I'm out there. That is showing a clear understanding of the text that not only is Yah the supreme Elohim, but there's also this beauty that is in the land of Israel. There's this sanctification in the eretz, in the land, in the earth of Israel. So, just to wrap this first part up, and then we're going to flow real quick, and we're going to get started in the book of Acts. These nations, we all got disinherited. Once we were disinherited, Yah took his portion, which was Yaakov, which at that point was Abraham. And the rest of the nations we see in verses like Deuteronomy 4:19 were turned over to the other gods, to the moon, the stars, the sun, and the host of heaven. That's exactly what it says. So you see these other entities running roughshod over these other nations. It is our job to get it right with the Abrahamic covenant and to bring justice and judgment into this nation, into this land, into this world, while we are in the diaspora. Notice Deuteronomy 30 says we will wake up and bethink ourselves in our captivity. That is the beauty of Yah's plan. We will wake up and do this thing all around the world in all of these other jurisdictions while in our captivity, and then bring ourselves and bring these things to the mind of the nations. Go ahead and read Deuteronomy 30:1 through 10 now with this concept in your head. And for many of us, we've already have, but for those that haven't, it will change your thought process. So now we go ahead. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and did you want to bring out anything? I've been running my mouth, man.
Nah, man. Like I said, man, you shining right now, Art. It's your time. Do your thing. I have no issue with falling back.
Praise the Most High, man. Hallelujah.
Yeah, and a brother just wanted to publicly this call driver just wanted to publicly thank you, as you can see in the screenshot, all the way from Montego Bay. We appreciate you calling in, my brother.
Man, hallelujah.
Yeah, he asked some pretty good. He asked some good questions. He really did.
That was awesome. Like that's the type of stuff. That's the type of stuff we need because it allows you to dig deeper. So now, best believe when we get off, I'm gonna go study something about Nineveh and see what was going on there. All right, so now we're gonna move into. I'm not gonna go deep into the New Testament because like I said, I'm not trying to cause a stumbling. We already have a stumbling block in front of us. I'm not trying to continue to put the stumbling block in front of my brothers. Right, I want y'all to understand that. Now, if you get mad, you know it is what it is. But I do want to show how this thing correlates. Now, just specifically, and I'm pretty much to stay in Acts chapter 2, but I'm gonna first start in Ephesians. Let me get it up. Oh, you know what? I wish I would have told you to look these ones up too. Because this would have been, you know what? I might be able to do them right now. Because these are good ones. So please forgive me. Like I said, this was supposed to go a little different tonight, but we work with the Most High. We do what the Most High allows us to do when He allows us to do it. So I'm going to Ephesians 6:12 really quick. And this is Paul talking to the church of Ephesus. He says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." That sounds a lot like what we were seeing in Isaiah 24 with those high ones on high. If we were to go into this verse, and I'm just going to do a quick little breakdown. He says we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So like I'm telling y'all, you know, I've learned in this short time that I've been working with Sal and BA, and these brothers have really blessed me. I've learned to look past the spirit of these people when they come at you and attack you. You have to learn to look past the flesh and blood and see the principalities and the powers and the rulers that are in darkness, that are pressing upon their flesh. So take that back again to like something in 1 Kings 22, when those entities clearly said that they were going to go down and be a lying spirit. Or in Job 1, when Hasatan is allowed to do all of these things to Job, right? These entities have the power to press upon your flesh. That's why they're called principalities, powers, and rulers. These, if you study those words, those are words of authority. Of like when you think about a ruler, you think about a king or a prince, right? You think about somebody that has a geographical rule over this. Now, watch this when we go to Acts 2. I know some of y'all don't rock with Paul. This ain't Paul writing, this is Luke writing, so maybe y'all can receive this. So this is in Acts 2 now. This is when the day. So Acts 2:1 says, "And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place." Now, remember when I was telling y'all about what happened in Genesis 11? I'm going to submit to you guys that Acts 2 is the first step in the undoing of what happened in Genesis 11. Because we're going to clearly see a lot of parallels, especially in the language, right? And in the parallel of how things are happening, right? So remember, in Genesis 11, in verse 1, they are all in one place on one accord. They are all of one language, and they decide we're going to go up here, we're going to make a name for ourselves. Well, now you see everybody in one place on one accord during Pentecost, actually trying to get right. What they don't know is that they were guilty of killing an innocent man, and that's what Peter later on preaches. We're not going to go into that part, though. We're just going to strictly deal with the parallels to Genesis 11, right? So they're in one place on one accord, just like at the Tower of Babel. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. So now we see some interaction from the Shamayim. I'm not going to go into what you feel this mighty wind is. because honestly, at this point, that is not the major point of importance. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues, like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. Now, remember, at Babel, they all were of one language. Then all of a sudden, they're speaking different languages. Here, now they are all different languages. And this is the word I had my Ak look up earlier. Brother B.A. looked up this diamirzo, or diamirizo, right? When we look this up again, just to remind you, this is the dividing and opposing opposite parts at variance, dissension, right? So immediately what happens is there's a different language that comes on everybody. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think happened is these guys were able to talk in the regular Galilean tongue, but all of these people were able to hear them in their original language. That's what I see happening, right? And so when we go to verse 3, and there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as fire, and sat upon each of them, right? And then verse 4, and they were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with other tongues, and as the Spirit gave them utterance, right? So when we say speak with other tongues, this word speak, you need to do some research on that. It can also mean to perceive. So they could have either spoke with other tongues or they could have understood in other tongues. Verse 5, and there were dwelling, and this is how you know this is really the impetus of reclaiming the nations in verse 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men of every nation under heaven. So at this point in time, there is somebody representing every nation under heaven, even from the Gentile nations. So if you want to say that the people that came in were only black Israelites, that's fine, because eventually they still got to go back to their nations where they were living at. If you want to say that these were true Gentiles, that just happened, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, if they were just Israelites or if they was Gentiles, eventually, guess what? They going right back out to their nations. And because this thing happened, this is the spark. This is the beginning of the reclaiming of the nations. Okay? Verse 6. Now, when this was more... What's up? What's up, Op?
No, I was just saying exactly. They're disagreeing. That's all.
Right, come on. Now, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were what? Were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. Now, remember what Brother B.A. brought out earlier. They were confounded. I got it right here. Bring that out for me. Bring that out.
The definition is to pour together, commingle, confound.
Now, they are confounded because that every man heard them speak in his own language. So now you're seeing the reversal. Before they didn't speak the same language and they got split up. Now they speak in different languages and it's bringing them together. Because now we speak different languages and I can still hear you in my own language. And they all were amazed and marveled. Verse 7 saying one to another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? So ain't all these dudes talking to us? They're from Galilee. How come we can understand them? And how hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born? Now, here's where it gets crazy. So verse 9, Parthians and Medes and Elamites and the dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia and Phrygia and Pamphylia and Egypt and in the parts of Libya and Cyrene and the strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our own tongues the wonderful works, and this is Theos, we'll say Elohim. And they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying one to another, what meaneth this? 13, others mocking said, these men were full of wine. 14, but Peter standing up with the 11 lifted up his voice and said unto them, ye men of Judea, and all ye that dwell in Jerusalem, be this known unto you, and hearken unto my words. And then he goes in and he starts explaining it, and he starts giving the prophecy in Joel. What we see happening, and the more if you follow this journey in Acts, once you get into Acts chapter 8 and Acts 17 and then like 19 into 20 and stuff like that, You see Paul dead set on a mission of going to all of the nations. Why? Because he is the apostle to the Gentiles. We had James, we had Peter talking to the true Israelites. Paul now has this task of going to the Gentiles because remember, we are to bless the nations. This in Acts is the beginning of the reclaiming of the territory. You have to understand this, Israel, if you ever hope to get out of where we are at. We are not to just sit back and fight about what, am I messianic, am I non-messianic? Is it black, is it only black? If you don't get out of that mindset and get to the point where you understand this book and live Torah and then bring justice and judgment to the nations, do you know there are places right now, like let's talk about India, I think it's Mumbai, where they got the largest slum, the largest ghetto in the world, where they sitting back looking at, and it's crazy because if you see it, you can see high-rises that are 100 feet tall, 50 feet tall, looking down 20 feet away at these people living in shanty towns, just shack after shack after shack. We don't got to go far. Most of us live in really bad neighborhoods or have lived in really bad neighborhoods. Do you not think that it is not our job to go and be a light into those nations, into those different communities? And everywhere that we're spread out, we have Israelites in Australia. We have Israelites in England. We have Israelites in all over Europe and Africa and America, North America and South America. You are waking up where you are for a reason, because it is time to reclaim the nations from these lesser Elohims, from these deities, because they have been allowed to run roughshod and influence these people, because no one will stand up and teach Torah. No one will stand up and live Torah because we're too busy arguing and fussing when it's clear what our mandate is. Be a blessing to the nations. But you can't be a blessing to the nations until you realize that you are Yah's portion. So, yes, you are special. You have been chosen for a reason. You have a purpose. You are Yah's portion. You are his inheritance. That's it.
Can I interject real quick?
Go ahead.
I would also like to add, or land back off what the brother was saying. We understand that we have a love for our people and we want to take this message to our people. But we're getting to a point to where if Israel don't want to listen, we can no longer afford to waste our time with Israelites who don't want to listen. That's why we're supposed to be a light to the nations. So if Israel don't get it, somebody else will. And I just want to say that.
So to just to add to that, I'm not saying don't care about our people. Right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is our people, the rest of our people right now that are sitting back watching, they waiting for us to do something. So what if they come in at the end? So what? But until we get active and put something together, they're not finna stop. These brothers not going to stop shooting people in the middle of the streets until they see us put something together that says you no longer even have to live there. These sisters are not going to stop dressing the way that they dressing and acting the way that they acting unless they say, look, sister, we have put this together so now you don't have to act like that. We are training our men up to now you have a better man to look at. You know what, brothers? We are training our sisters up so now you have a beautiful, modest, wonderful, Torah-loving sister that you can marry. And then let's go show these Gentiles how we really get down. Right? If we come at this and attack it from the nation or from the notion of understanding that this all goes back to the Abrahamic covenant, to the dispossession of the nations, to us being Yah's inheritance, and us not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and rulers and darkness of this world. And if you want to get into the metaphysics of it, we can, because there is a CERN Hydra Collider right there in Switzerland right now trying to shoot into dark matter to see if they can contact with other entities on the other side. So y'all think you think these things are games? It's all fun and games until it happens. Even saying in the military, it's all fun and games till somebody lose an eye. It's all fun and games until you really see some spiritual entities manifesting themselves. You are not fighting against that man in front of you. You're fighting against that spirit behind him. It is time for us to come out of the madness, the nonsense, and move forward in a spirit of being understanding, in the belief and understanding of the henotheistic, or more specifically, monolatristic viewpoint, which is we have our God, the nations have their God, but if you're going to join us, you cannot worship any other God. That's the true understanding of this tonight. Now, you want to be a heathen and go out there and act crazy and worship these other entities, then go ahead. You're going to get banged out. But if you want to come in and cleave to this and you want to get righteous and come get right, then what we do is we worship and praise Yah, and we fight against the other entities. Period, point blank. That's all I got.
Man, well, praise the Most High, and much love to His holy anointed known as the Christ. It's a powerful, powerful information, man. You brought out some stuff. You clear. Your delivery was on point. In my opinion, it was all 100. And we just thank the Most High for allowing you to, for him for putting the Spirit on you to deliver His word. Sal, I know we got a few minutes left on the air. Are there any other callers? Press 1.
All right, family. We have like 14 minutes left in the air. If you have any quick comments, questions, feel free to dial that number, 319-527-6239, or press number 1. We'll bring you in a conversation. This is your time. If you want to get some further understanding and you want to throw a quick question out there, you can. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. If you're already on the phone line, simply press number 1. We'll bring you in the conversation. Other than that, you can have a hold your peace. Go back to the archives. Of course, we're in iTunes in the podcast section. We appreciate the family out there. And by the way, I want to thank some people actually that donated. We have Raphael Ben Israel. He donated $50. We appreciate him. And also Harame. I think I pronounced that right. Harame from Australia. He donated $21. We appreciate that. Like I said, every month we pay hundreds of dollars to keep this show on the air. For you guys, again, we pay Blog Talk Radio in order to keep this program going, and any assistance will be greatly appreciated. So again, if you want to help Debate Talk you or me on the air, all you got to do is go to PayPal.com, use the email debatetalkforyou@gmail.com, and that'll keep the show going. We appreciate the family out there that donated. Continue, fellas.
Man, and thank you to those brothers who donated to the show. We appreciate it. That's what it's all about, for the people to donate so we can continue to deliver the information and continue to bring out these kind of shows to edify. That's what we want to do. We don't want to discuss anything that has nothing to do with the word of the Most High. If it has nothing to do with the word of the Most High, we want no part of it. We're not here to promote no drama. We're not here to promote no internet beef, none of that. We are here only to promote the word of the Most High. Only. And that's what it's all about overall. We're not here to finesse. We're not here to make ourselves out to be something that we're not. We're not pretending. We're not pump faking. We're not doing none of that. Our goal is to just bring people to the knowledge of the Most High, and they get an understanding. And we're here to help and provoke people to righteousness. And whatever part of the walk they're on, we hope that we help them get to whatever purpose the Most High has for that individual or those groups of people who listen and who support this platform. Debate Talk for You has been doing this for a amount of years. We thank the Most High for Sal, for putting it on Sal's heart to always stand by and to allow people to come on here and to share information. That's what it's all about. And I have nothing else to say. You go ahead, Anonymous.
Okay. I want to bring out a couple of points. One, once again, we are not in any way, shape, or form condoning the worship of any other entity except for what we know to be the Creator. Number two, I know some people might be mad because I didn't bring up Yeshua or Yahushua or Yahusha or Jesus or whatever name you choose to call him. The way I see it right now is our family is struggling with that. Our family is struggling really hard with that right now. And they know what we teach. They know what we believe. Anybody that know me know I go hard. I go hard for the Messiah. But there comes a time when you also have to take into account that maybe people just either don't get it or it's too much for them. And so that doesn't mean that we don't teach it. We just have to show how it relates to him without throwing him in their face all the time. They know he taught Torah. They know that he was not the hippie on the stick, as they call it, Caesar Borgia. Right? That's not Mashiach. So to continue to throw a stumbling block in front of your brothers when you already see them stumbling with something is a violation of Torah. Right? But I want to make it clear. I do follow the Messiah. And I do believe in everything that he taught. And I do believe that he was teaching Torah. I just don't feel the need to rub it in everybody's faces all the time. But Acts, especially chapter 2, this is after his death, burial, and resurrection, you clearly see Paul is on a mission to get to these nations. And if you do a study of those nations, and if you do a study of his journeys, you will see him going from east to west in the same manner of when you see in Genesis 11, they were moving from east to west. And you just see it. You see it so clearly, just the reclaiming of the nations. And now that we are in the diaspora, it is our job to fulfill the rest of the prophecy. And I believe that we are doing it. I know it doesn't seem like it, but if you can think about growing pains, it hurts. Growing pains hurts. And so we're going through our growing pains right now. But we'll get there. But we do. We have to stop being afraid of certain concepts, right? Henotheism is not the boogeyman. But believing and worshiping other gods, putting other gods before the Most High, that's sacrilege. That's the boogeyman. But knowing that they are out there and knowing how to defeat them, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to teach. So I want to thank Sal for providing this platform. I want to thank and congratulate the brothers who have donated. That's a big step. I also want to say I love you, Mishpachah. I love our nation. I love our family. And I want to thank my brother, B.A., for, one, staying on me to even get involved with stuff like this, and then, two, for giving me the opportunity tonight. Because, like I said, I was just ready to do a good build. And, things happen. And the last thing I would say, family, is we have to pray for our leaders, all right? We have to pray for our brothers and for our sisters that are in positions of leadership. Pray for them to be protected. Pray for them to be in positions of greatness rather than anything else. I think we talked about this last night. The job of a coach is to put you in a position to succeed. So we pray, we want to petition the Creator to put all of our leaders in positions to succeed so that these entities cannot prey upon any of our weaknesses. And this is not a shot at anybody. We all have weaknesses. So we have to pray that we all are doing better tomorrow than we did today, that we are becoming better conduits for the Creator and for his mission than we were today. So I love y'all. Thank y'all. Go ahead. I'm good.
No, I was just gonna say, And like I said, this is from an overall perspective. Overall, I'm not talking about anything in particular. What I noticed over the last couple of years is that when we have our leaders, man, we have to pray for them, and we all have our weaknesses. But from what I'm on there, and what I'm starting to notice is that people want to spill blood. They want to cut somebody when they're down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's got to stop. That's got to stop. And then I question this now because everybody always say, well, I'm going to be praying for you, brother. I'm going to be praying for you, sister. Are we really praying for each other? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it because all you see is wanting to cut someone's neck after they make a mistake. Is that the light that the Most High set us up to be?
Man.
Just think about that, Israel. Hey, when we say that we want a change, we want a change. If we're going to call ourselves the light or this special great people or whatever you want to call it, I believe the Most High has put it on us to make sure that we act on that. And I'd be damned if we sit here and we just have people in the community do one thing and then promote something else. We have to look, and that's what's called being a watchman. We have to sit back and we have to observe. And the reason why we do the things on the Man Up segment is because we love our people. We love the Most High, and we want to see our people do better. That's all it is. Yeah, I may go hard at the brothers, but I want to see improvement because we're calling ourselves by the name of the Most High, and we're going to get judged, man. This is serious.
Man.
This is serious, man. This is not a game. This guy wants us to do right. And he will pick you off or he'll cut you off if you continue to use his name and do the opposite. This is serious. Stop doing all the finessing on social media. Let's link up and let's build this community. Let's build this nation and let's stop playing. If anybody want to come up on the Man Up segment coming up for the new season, reach us on Facebook, Radical Rhyme 1984 at gmail.com. We're looking for serious Israelites. We're not up here looking for the immature guys online that plays around all the time. None of that. Mature brothers in this word who want to carry out and want to deliver. And I'm going to fall back. Go ahead and close it out, Anonymous.
Yeah. I just want to I want to thank the emus that are praying for us. I know Imam Malak will be out there praying for us, man. Thank you to the emus, to the sisters that are praying. Thank you to the brothers that are supporting. Thank you to everybody that is trying to be better every day, right? Toda, we are doing it. It's moving slow. So like the brother said though, like it's time to stop pump faking, right? Either we in this or we not. And if we really in this, then let's get it popping. Let's have these conversations, but let's have them in love. Let's have these builds, but have them in love. I want to say all praise to the Most High, and let's just continue to work, right? Because the enemy is on his job. We got to be on ours. So love y'all. Lalato. Shalom, Mr. Kyle.